world. Welcome to Sunday evening, where I am going to read some stuff to you from the Bible and sing a couple of songs. I have my back blinds open today. You can see my little lake outside. It's lighter now, so I'm leaving it open. So I'm going to read you today. This is basically the story of Gideon, and I've always liked this story, and I heard a song this last week that made me think of the story of Gideon. And I'm going to read you this story first, and then I'm going to read you the words of that song rather than sing that particular song, because that song, I know I've heard it before, but I never caught the words to it before. I think because it's really quite a jumble of It's quite a jumble of words in that song, and even though I had heard it many times, I never really caught what it was saying. And one day it said something that was mentioning. It said, "If you're broke," and when I heard it say that song, "If you're broke," I remember thinking, yes, I am broke, and then I realized, he didn't mean money. Even though the song says "if you're broke," he really meant if you're broken. But still, because it had caught my attention, I listened to the rest of the words to the song, and I thought, that's a pretty profound song. That's pretty neat. And it's got a couple of parts in it that really, I thought they were really amazing. And so I'm going to, rather than try to sing that song because it goes by so fast, they jumble. It isn't that it's such a fast song. It's somewhat fast, but they crammed a lot of words into the song, and they go by so fast they're easy to miss. So I really felt like I really need to read the words to that song. I am going to sing a couple songs, but that one I heard on the radio, I'm going to read you what it says because I really liked a couple of those lines. But first, we're going to read Judges 6 through 8. I'm not reading the entire 3 chapters. You can go to Judges 6 through 8 if you like and read this entire story for yourself. I'm trying to condense it a little bit just so it's not too terribly long, and I mainly want to get you the main gist of the story. And it says, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. You know, if you read the Old Testament, you know they did this over and over and over. They kept going back. They would do right, then they do wrong again, then they do right, then they do wrong again. And they would really only start doing right when they wanted something, when they wanted God, and they wanted to be blessed, and they were hurting in their condition they were in, and God would say, stop doing wrong, and they would go, okay. And then they would go back to it again. That sounds pretty familiar, I think, sometimes. But it says in this point, in Judges 6 through 8, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. It should say again. So the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel because of the Midianites, the children of Israel. Let me finish that. So anyway, God delivered them to their enemy, and he would have warned them to obey him. If you obey me, I will protect you and keep your enemies at bay. But they kept disobeying him. It said right there they did evil. So he would take his hand off of them, and the enemy would come in and start destroying them. And it was because of their own choice. It wasn't because God was just mad at them and so I'm going to slap you down. He basically would tell them to stay in my protection, you have to obey my word. But they didn't just not obey. They actually did evil, which not obeying is evil. But they did terrible things. They erected idols. They did all kind of things that were horrible in God's sight. And he basically had told them what would happen if they did not obey him. So he had to do what he said because God does not lie. So it says, because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves the dens, the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. So they were hiding. They were making places for themselves to hide. So it was whenever Israel had sown, so they were planting gardens and farms, and they were planting things, the Midianites would come up, the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. So they would, bring other evil people with them. Then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, would leave no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor donkey. So they had no food because these enemies were destroying their food to try to defeat Israel. So they destroyed all their crops. And apparently their sheep and their ox and their donkeys. They either took them or they destroyed them. For they would come up with their livestock and their tents, coming in as numerous as locusts. This sounds a little familiar to me. For a country who was turning against God and not making God their Lord, the foreigners were coming in and destroying their country, is what was happening. They were destroying their lives. They were destroying everything. And it said there were so many of them, they were numerous as locusts. In other words, the locusts swarmed. There would be thousands and thousands and thousands of locusts. And these people that were coming from foreign countries with their evil ways were invading Israel by the thousands. And it says both they and their camels were without number, and they would enter the land to destroy it. So Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. So they were starving, and they were very impoverished, and of course they cried out to the Lord. They cried out to the Lord because they had disobeyed him, and the enemy attacked them, and now the only hope they had again was God. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. So they were able to sometimes maybe plant a few crops, some here and there, that the Midianites didn't find. And Gideon was on his father's property, and it says he was threshing the wheat in the winepress. So this is normally where they made wine, but he was hiding in there threshing wheat, because if he went where they normally threshed wheat, he probably would have been caught. So he was sneaking around trying to thresh the wheat so they could have something to eat in his own property, in his own country, in his own home. He had to sneak around to have something to eat. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." Now I love this. Gideon said to him, I've always felt like a kinship to Gideon, and I have felt the kinship to Gideon because of his response. And so let me ask you this question. If you were somewhere and you were struggling to even survive, and an angel of the Lord appeared to you. Now, I would imagine most people in my hearing have probably not had an angel of the Lord appear to them, at least not one that you knew it was an angel. If suddenly an angel appeared to you out of nowhere and spoke to you and said, "The Lord is with you, you man of valor, you mighty man of valor," said anything to you, what would you do? Think about it for a minute. What would you do if an angel appeared to you? Would you be afraid? You know, most angels appeared and said, "Do not fear not. Fear not, I'm from God." This angel didn't say fear not. Why do you not say fear not? I think he probably knew Gideon wasn't afraid. Apparently, by his response, Gideon was not afraid. So what would you do, though? Would you be nervous? Would you shake? Oh, no. Oh, what's going to happen? What? Especially these people didn't have the relationship with God that we have. They only had it through priests and sacrifices. They didn't have Christ to be their Redeemer yet. And we have a direct line to God now. We can go directly into the throne room. They couldn't. And so they had a little more distant relationship with God. So if an angel appeared to you, would you be like, would you fall down on your face? Would you fall down on your knees? Would you cover your face? Would you bow your head? Would you shake? Would you be nervous? Whoa, whoa, angel of the Lord, what do you want? Why are you here? What is going on? Wouldn't you be like shocked, if nothing else, surprised? But Gideon said to him, okay, so the angel appears to him and said, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." And Gideon said to him, he didn't blink an eye. He didn't say, "Why are you here?" He didn't say, "Oh my goodness, it's an angel of the Lord. I can hardly believe an angel of the Lord is coming to me." He says to him, "Oh my Lord, if the Lord is with us, then why has all this happened to us?" That sounds like exactly what I think I would say. If an angel appeared to me, why has this happened to me? If God is with me, why is this stuff happening? I kind of relate to Gideon in this way. That's all he said. He didn't act nervous. He didn't bow down. He didn't shake in his boots. He wasn't afraid. As a matter of fact, he stood right up to him and said to him, "If the Lord is with us, why has this happened to us? And where are the miracles which our father told us about, saying, 'Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hand of the Midianites.'" Well, that was pretty bold, wasn't it? To an angel? You'd say that? Would you say that to an angel? Would you? "If the Lord is with us, why has this happened to us? And where are my miracles?" I'm positive that if an angel appeared, that's what I would do. Where are my children? Where is my godly husband that I was promised? Where is my home? Where are the things I was promised? Where are my miracles? Where's the healings that I've prayed for others? Where's it at? Where are my miracles? If God's for us, why are these bad things happening to me? And the other thing that he said, "The Lord's forsaken us and delivered us into our enemies' hands." That was pretty bold. But you know what I find interesting? He was not rebuked. The angel didn't say, "Oh, how dare you say that? Oh, you don't say that against God. Why do you?" Because those things had happened. He wasn't wrong. He was not mistaken. The angel did not say, "Oh, you bad man," for saying that. He did not rebuke him. He didn't rebuke him at all. So again, he said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, and why has all this happened to us? And where are his miracles, which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites." Then the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours." I like that he was bold, Gideon. He was bold to stand up the first second the angel appeared. The first words out of his mouth are the first words. "If the Lord's with us, why has this happened to us?" That's pretty bold to say to an angel if you've never seen an angel before in your life. You don't even know why that angel's there. You don't even know what's happening. And those are the first words out of his mouth. First words out of his mouth. "Gideon, you mighty man of valor. Yeah, if the Lord's with us, what has this happened to us? And where are the miracles?" And then the angel says to him, "Go in this might of yours." In other words, with this boldness, with this strength, with knowing that you are right, go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? So he didn't even tell Gideon, "Don't be afraid." Most likely because Gideon was obviously not afraid. He spoke right up to him. And the thing is, the entire country of Israelites, it says they did evil in the sight of the Lord. This is why those things happened to him. But it sounds like to me that possibly Gideon was still serving God. And you know, it can be when you're in a country that the country's doing evil and things are going bad, but you are serving God, it can be rather frustrating. I imagine that was that way for Joshua and Caleb when they were with Moses and they came back and they sent the 12 people to inspect the promised land, and 10 came back and said, "Oh, there's giants there. There's giants there. We can't defeat them. Not even with God's help. Apparently, we can't defeat them, even though God told us to do it." But Joshua and Caleb said, "No, we're able. We're able to go defeat them because God is with us. And it's a land flowing with milk and honey, just like God said. And if he said that was there and it's there, and he said we can defeat the enemies, we can." But they had to wander in the wilderness 40 years like everybody else. Like everybody else. Was that fair to them? It really wasn't fair to them. But still, they still got it 40 years later. They still got what they were promised. And Joshua became the leader, actually. Became the leader of Israel. And Caleb was given his own land. And he said at 80 some years old, he said, I've got the strength. I'm stronger now than I was when I was 40. Stronger now than I was when I was 40. Not many people in their 80s are saying that. But see, God gave him special strength because it had not been fair that he had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years when he had believed God that we can take this promised land now. So God sustained his strength to make up for him having to be in the wilderness when he really shouldn't have had to been. He and Joshua should have gotten to go because they are the ones that believed. But see, God, even though they had to go through that wilderness experience with the countrymen, God made up for it for them later, even though it took 40 years, and that can be a long time. And Gideon may have been someone also who was believing God and had been serving God. Maybe he didn't do evil in God's sight, I don't know. But he may have felt like, why am I suffering just because everybody else is doing evil? So when he says to him, "Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites, have I not sent you?" So Gideon says back to him, "Oh, my Lord, how can I save Israel?" So here he has a moment of, hey, wait a minute. I'm not that strong. You want me to go save the entire land of Israel? I'm just one person. Well, how can I do that? And he says, "Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh." So in his clan in Israel, his tribe, his part of the tribe, he said, "My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my father's house." He was possibly the youngest person. Or maybe he had the smallest family of his father's house. It says, "I'm the least in my father's house." So he said, well, there's a lot more people that have a lot more. They're a bigger clan. They got more people with them. They're stronger people. Maybe they're physically stronger. Maybe they got a lot more children and grandchildren and descendants, and they're bigger clans. Why don't you send them? I'm a little tiny one. Why are you coming to me? We're the tiniest clan, and I'm like the tiniest. I'm not necessarily physically tiny, but the number of people with him might have been the smallest. He might have had the smallest family compared to the others. And you'll read later, you find out he had like 70 children. But still, there might have been others that had a lot more. So compared to the other people, we do not know how many children they had. But to him, he felt like the smallest, the least in my father's house. And the Lord said to him, surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man. So it didn't matter if you felt you were from the smallest clan, the smallest family, the weakest, the least in your father's house. All it takes is for God to say, surely I'll be with you. Surely I'll be with you. It doesn't matter what you are actually. It just matters what he is. And it matters that he's with you. And he says you're going to defeat the Midianites as one man. In other words, you're going to go down and wipe them out just like it was one person. Now it came to pass the same night that the Lord said to him, take your father's young bull, the second bull of 7 years old, tear down the altar of Baal that was in your father's house, and cut down the wooden image that is beside it. So apparently his father was serving an idol. This is what Israel was doing that was evil in God's sight. They were, one of the things anyway, they were worshiping idols. And even his own father had an image of Baal. And it says also a wooden image that's beside it. So they had an image of Baal and another idol beside it. So his father was not serving God. Gideon may have been, but his father was worshiping an idol and had that in his house. And this other image also, he had 2 idols. And the angel is telling him, and build an altar to the Lord your God on top of this rock in the proper arrangement. In other words, do it the way God's told you to do it. Take the second bull and offer as a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the image which you cut down. So he's saying you're going to take that idol that's made of wood beside Baal, that other idol. You're going to chop that up and you're going to use that as fuel to burn on the fire. You're not just going to take down that idol. You're going to burn it. And you're going to burn it and use it to sacrifice to God as he told you to. So Gideon took, so there's no way you're going to recuperate that idol. So Gideon took 10 men from among his servants and did as the Lord had said to him. But because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, he did it by night. So he was still he was afraid of his father and afraid of his father's family and the household and the men of the city. But he still did do what he was told to do. And see, it was significant. Before he went to do anything for God, he got rid of stuff that shouldn't have been in his family's home. He was living on this property with his father, because it said, he was there threshing the wheat. Most likely he was also living there. And he may not have been worshiping the idol himself, but it was there in his presence. And God said, before you work for me, we got to cleanse this. We got to get the stuff out that's not supposed to be here, even the stuff that's just around you. So he obeyed. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east gathered together, and they crossed over and camped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. Then he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezrites gathered behind him. Remember, that's where he was living. He said his father was an Abiezrite, and so that's the people living in his neighborhood, basically. So they gathered behind him, and he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and also gathered behind him, and he sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. Those are the other tribes of Judah. He sent them to all the nearby ones, saying, come help me defeat the enemy. So they ended up with thousands of people. And just to make it a little shorter, God basically says, look, you can't have this many people. Because if you have this many people, you're going to say that your strength is what defeated the Midianites. And I don't want you to think it's you that did it, because this, after all, wasn't your idea, it was mine. So you got to reduce the number of people, because you're going to know beyond a doubt it was me that did it. So he had them in a couple of steps, reduce it down to 300 people. So you had Gideon and 300 people. So it says, so the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands, and he sent away all the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, and retained the 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley, so they were down, they were camped there, the enemy. This had happened in the same night that the Lord said to him, saying to Gideon, arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it in your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah your servant, and you shall hear what they say. And afterward your hand shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. So he went down with Purah his servant to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. So it's interesting that he says, if you're afraid to just go down and attack them like I'm telling you, take your servant and go listen to what they're saying. So apparently he was afraid, because it says he went down to the camp with his servant. Well, God told him it was okay to do it, because if you're afraid, take your servant and go listen to him. So apparently he was afraid, because he took his servant and went and listened to him. And just snuck around. They were probably hiding in the bushes or something, and listening to what the Midianites were saying. Then he went down. Oh, I read that. Now the Midianites And Amalekites, all the people of the east, were lying in the valley as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number as the sand of the seashore in multitude. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companion, and he said, I had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so that it fell and overturned the tent collapsed. Then his companion, so this is the other Midianite, his companion said to him, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash. How did he know who he was? How did he know? How did he know, son? How did he know Gideon, the son of? How did he know he was the son of Joash? How did he know Gideon at all? How did he know him? He was an enemy. How did he know who he was? He says, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered Midian and the whole camp. How did he know that? How did he know that? First of all, these were not God-worshiping people. They were Midianites, Amalekites. They were godless people. It says, into Gideon's hand God has delivered. He's talking about God. God's delivered us into his hand. How did he believe that? This enemy believed that God, that he didn't even worship or believe in, that this God was going to deliver them into Gideon's hand. How did he know who Gideon was? How was it he knew God was going to deliver them? How did he know? I wonder if that angel who went to Gideon, because the Bible doesn't tell us how he knew, but I wonder if that angel went and somehow talked to some of these people in the camp. Maybe they thought he was a man, or maybe that he went to them in a dream, like this one had a dream of didn't know what it meant, but the other guy said, oh, I know what that means. It's the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash. He had to have heard about it. How did he hear about him? He was not, he had before been a man hiding in the wine press, sneaking around, threshing the wheat so nobody'd catch him. They wouldn't have said, oh, that's the sword of Gideon. They didn't even know, probably think he had a sword. How did they even know he existed? I'm thinking the angel snuck around down there and started spreading the word. Somehow he had to know his name. He knew his father. He knew he had a sword. He knew he was in Israel. And he knew God had delivered the Midian and the whole camp. So they were already talking about it. And so it was when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation that he worshiped. So he knew, God, you've been here before me. You've been here amongst my enemies. He had to have been. They could not have known any of these names. They didn't even believe in God. But yet they were afraid. Somehow they'd gotten the word. God had gotten it to them. We don't know exactly what method he used. Like I said, maybe it was the angel. Went and snuck around, started telling them. We don't know. But apparently they believed it. He believed it was going to happen. Gideon returned to the camp of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into your hand. Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, so it's 100 each. And he put a trumpet into every man's hand with empty pitchers. Now I'm reading this whole story to get to this part. He gave them an empty pitcher, like a jug. An empty pitcher. It was probably earthenware. And torches inside the pitchers. Now the torches would have been something, it probably wouldn't have been a candle, it would have been something with some pitch or some sort of fuel to it that it wouldn't just blow out. It would have been more like a torch that had oil or something on it that would keep burning even if the wind was blowing. So it said they had these empty pitchers and had torches inside the pitcher. So they had a jug, some kind of vessel that was all closed up, and they had a torch burning in it, but you couldn't see the torch, because it was enclosed. Even would have had an open top, so it still would have had oxygen getting to it, but the light wasn't really shining out much because it was all closed up. Now, why am I reading that to you? I'm going to get to that. And he said to them, look at me and do likewise. Watch, and when I come to the edge of the camp, you shall do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp and say the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So remember, they're already afraid of that. They're the ones that said the sword of Gideon. Sword of Gideon is coming. It's going to defeat us. So he said that's what you're going to shout, because that's what the people of his camp were worried about. They were spreading the word amongst themselves. Say the sword of the Lord and Gideon. So Gideon and 100 men were with him. So they were in 3 spots. Came to the outpost of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just as they had posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. So what happened when they broke those pitchers? The light that was in those pitchers was able to shine through. What was keeping them in the light enclosed where you couldn't see it They broke them. I don't know if they broke a hunk out of it or if they cracked it, whatever they did, but they broke the pitcher. And when it broke, you saw what was inside. You saw the light. That's really what the theme that I'm talking about now. And I'm going to get, when I get to that song, you'll understand more. They broke the pitchers, and the 3 companies blew the trumpets, and they broke their pitchers. They held the torches in their left hand and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing, and they cried, "The sword of the Lord," and Gideon and every man stood in his place all around the camp. So you notice they didn't move. They just stood, they were circled around the camp. They just stood there holding a sword and a broken pitcher with a light in it. They just stood there. They didn't have to fight. They had to do nothing but break a pitcher, let the light shine, hold the sword, and yell, "The sword of the Lord," and Gideon. That's all they said. They stood in their place all around the camp. They didn't even walk. They didn't move. They didn't chase them. They did nothing. They stood there. And the whole army ran and cried out and fled. They stood there shining lights, shouting, "The sword of the Lord," and Gideon, holding the sword in their hand and a torch in the other hand, and the people scared to death ran. Why? Because God had scared them ahead of time. And when the 300 blew the trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp, and the army fled. So what happened is I think he spooked them all so bad, they started killing each other. It said that he turned every man's sword against his companion. So they would get up, grabbing their sword, going, "Oh, that's the enemy." And they'd kill him and go, "Oops, that wasn't the enemy. Oops." It was dark, except for the perimeter of their camp where the lights were. And they were killing each other because they thought that they thought the Israelites were there, on top of them, mixed in with them, and they weren't. They were standing at the edge of the camp, shouting and holding a light, and so all of a sudden it looked bright around them, but not right where they were exactly. So they started killing each other because they thought that they heard wrestling beside them. "That must be an Israelite right there. I'm gonna kill him." And that one Israelite was another Midianite. So some of them killed each other, and the ones that didn't kill each other says they fled. Then Gideon sent messengers throughout all the mountains of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize from them the watering places as far as Beth-barah and the Jordan." And all the men of Ephraim gathered together and seized the watering places. And that was vital to them. They had to have their wells and their watering places to live. And the enemy had seized them and was holding them, wouldn't let them have water. So they got all that back. Thus Midian was subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted their heads no more. Those enemies didn't come back. The Midianites, the Amalekites, they didn't come back. And the country was quiet for 40 years in the days of Gideon. So while he was ruling, there was no more. So I'm going to read this to you. This is the song I heard on the radio, written by Jason Gray. It's a fairly new song. I don't even know who Jason Gray is. But I heard this song, and like I said, the line that caught my attention was one that said, "The more broke you are." And I heard him say, "The more broke you are?" Yes, I'm broke. Broke? Oh, not money. He didn't mean money. He really meant, even though the song says the more broke you are, he means the more broken. People don't always use correct English to write songs anymore. The more broken you are. But let me read the rest of this until I get to that part. This says, "Sometimes the world feels like a mess." This is the verse. This is how this verse goes. "Sometimes the world feels like a mess, full of drama, full of stress. And life puts a fist right in your ribs. You can hide if you choose to, and no one would even blame you. Or you can let them see how you deal with it. Even in the darkest place, His love can make you radiate." Second verse says, "Don't be ashamed of your past if you're shattered like a piece of glass." I really relate to that because I feel like that my whole life was shattered like a piece of glass when I was left alone. And it says, "Don't be ashamed of your past if you're shattered like a piece of glass." Here's the line: "The more broke you are, the more the light gets through." That is so profound to me. The more broke you are, and what he should say is the more broken. The more broken you are, the more the light gets through. Show your wounds and your flaws. Show them why you still need the cross. Let them see the work He's doing in you, that even in the darkest place, His love can make you radiate. If you're broken, what will shine through? Will there be a light in there? Will there be? If you're broken and He is inside of you, His light can now shine through more than it could before. I've never really completely understood that. I've always thought God can't I be a witness to how your keeping power, your protection, you're keeping these evil things from me? I would so much rather that be my testimony. Look, God has always protected me and nothing bad has ever happened to me. That one, I would have preferred that. Oh, who wouldn't have, right? God, I've always served you. I've always obeyed you. And because of that, because I've been obedient to God, he's always kept all bad things from me. He's never let bad things happen to me. And look what a great testimony that would have been, I thought. But you know why that's not a good testimony? I mean, I guess it could be a good thing if God had always protected you, but it didn't happen for me. But you know why I think that's not as good a testimony? Because there's hardly anybody there. People are going to say, well, isn't that great for you? But my life's already a wreck. My life's already shattered. My life's already broken. God didn't protect me from all this bad stuff. So I guess that was good for you, but I don't relate to that because my life's already broken. So somehow, if you have gone through a part of your life where you've been broken, apparently God's light can shine through you even more than before you were broken. And I hate having to be broken. I hate having to have a broken heart. But if you can see, like those pictures before that were perfectly intact, they had the brightest shining torch in them, but you couldn't see it. But when it was time to defeat the enemy, they broke those pictures. Those pictures couldn't really be used for pictures anymore. They were broken now. But what were they used for? To shine the light that was inside. And the light that was inside defeated the entire enemy camp. And it said they came back no more. No more. They were seen no more. They might have had other enemies, but not those. They came back no more. Because the vessel that was holding that light was broken. The light shined through. In this line it says, the more broke you are, the more the light gets through. I love that. But listen to this chorus. Doesn't matter how deep, how dark the night is. Keep hoping. Keep on shining, and they'll see his light burning in your heart. And if the road gets rough, just keep your head up. Let the world see what you're made of, that his love is alive in your deepest parts. Like a flame, a burning star, you can shine right where you are. He made you. And this is the name of this song. And I love this. Never caught this before. He made you to glow in the dark. The name of this song is Glow in the Dark. And that's what I named this thing that I'm doing tonight. I titled it on my video, Glow in the Dark. He made you to glow in the dark. He didn't make you to glow in the light. Even Jesus said when he went to the homes of the sinners and they looked down on him, he said, I didn't come for the people who are saved. The doctor doesn't come for the well, he comes for the sick. And I didn't come for the people who are already on their way to heaven. I came for the sinners. I came to save those who are lost. Jesus came to shine in the dark. And now that he has returned to heaven and he put that light in us, he has made us to glow in the dark. You were created to glow in the dark. So glow in the dark. And I'm going to sing a couple of songs now about light. This first one I had not heard in a long time is written 1971. That was about maybe a year or so before I got saved. And I haven't heard it in a long time, and it's about the light. This one is really about Jesus being the light, because after all, that is what the light is. And I'm going to sing this song for you, and then a couple of others. There's a lighthouse on a hillside that overlooks life's sea. When I'm tossed, it sends out a light that I might see, and the light that shines in darkness now will safely lead us all. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, my ship would be no more. Everybody stands upon the hill, and I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him, for Jesus is the lighthouse, and from the rocks of sin He has shown the light around me, that I could clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me where would this ship be? And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him, for Jesus is the lighthouse, and from the rocks of sin He has shown the light around me, that I could clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me where would this ship be? I love that song, that now that Jesus has returned to heaven, He's the ultimate lighthouse. But He's told us now, you're the light of the world. You're the light. You be the lighthouse. But see, all we can really do as a lighthouse is point people to Him and His light. I want somebody to say, let's see, which one was it I liked in here? It's the one that says, if it wasn't for the lighthouse, where would this ship be? If it wasn't for the lighthouse. I want someone to find their way to God through me, even though I'm not the one saving them, but I want to point you to Him. And if it wasn't for the light, if you didn't see the light, if I've gone to all this trouble to be broken, I want you to see the light in me and find your way to Him. Otherwise, it's not worth it. I want it to be worth it. This is a hymn that was written in 1942. So you're thinking during World War II. And then the other, I'm going to sing one more after that, with just the chorus of the one after that. And I don't know when that one was written. But this is my prayer. Wrong words. Let me live, blessed Lord, in the light of Thy word. Let my life be a light on a hill, leading souls now astray to the straight, narrow way. Help me do some good deed while I live. Give me wisdom and power every day, every hour. Let me drink from the fountain above. Guide my footsteps aright through the dark, stormy night. Give me peace, give me joy, give me love. Give me souls for my hire. Let my life be on fire, shining out to the world as a guide. Help me rescue someone sinking now with no hope that in heaven we shall ever abide. Let my life be a light, shining out through the night. May I help struggling ones to the full, spreading cheer everywhere to the sad and the lone. Let my life be a light to some soul. Let my life be a light, shining out through the night. May I help struggling ones to the full, spreading cheer everywhere to the sad and the lone. Let my life be a light to some soul. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the fire Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me, where would this ship be? Matthew 5:14-16 says, you, talking to us as Christians, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. I really want there to be someone in heaven that says, if it wasn't for you and you letting your light shine, I wouldn't be here. That's a reward I want in heaven. 2 Corinthians 1-4, and God comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. So when we are going through tribulation and being broken and letting the light shine through us while we are broken, it says God comforts us so we can comfort others who are in trouble with the very comfort that he's given us. And the last verse, Psalm 147:3, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. So even though you might be a broken vessel, and I might be a broken vessel, allowing the light of God to shine through brighter, because it can shine through more in broken places. It says he heals the brokenhearted. I look forward to the day when I'm no longer a broken vessel, and that he heals my broken heart and binds up my wounds. I'm looking forward to the healing of my broken heart and the binding of my wounds. But no matter what state I am in, the light that he has put inside of me is going to shine through. And I pray that it gets through to you. And if you are in this state where you are brokenhearted and you're wounded, he heals the brokenhearted and he binds your wounds. But while you are anticipating his healing and the binding of the wounds, if you have his light in you, let it shine this week. And good night till next time.